Hello, hello. It's good to be back. It's Monday already. I can't believe it. I can't believe this is the last week of September of 2022. Holy moly, this year's going fast. It's incredible. So today's going to be an interesting day, I think. I think it'll be very helpful and educational. And we're going to talk about mental illness and personality disorders. And I'll give you as much practical information as I can. Hey, Sherry, hi. And I want to share with you the differences and give you some statistics about it. But first, before I do that, I just want to go over a little bit on Friday when we were talking about relationships. And again, there's so much about relationships that we could talk about forever. I love the topic, and I think it's really important to understand how we relate to other people as human beings and who we are and knowing ourselves well. And, you get to a point where you know who you really do connect with as friends, family members, people in the community, and those that we don't or wish not to because of a big personality difference or whatever. But what I want to say, though, that I forgot to add on Friday that I think was so important, and we don't come fully perfect, right, to get when we are together with somebody and wanting to meet somebody or finding our significant other, our partner, our spouse. We're not fully together. We're not like perfect human beings in no way, shape, or form. But we can try and be the best we can for up until that point. And that's why I love doing this, is to help us all understand how we operate as human beings, how we are as we are in our own personalities. What are our frailties and what are our strengths? And understanding the benefits of just being the best that we can be in this lifetime, because it can create better relationships, better communication, better understanding with one another. And I think that's key. In saying that, like I said, we're not all 100% fully perfect human. Well, we're never going to be that. We can strive, but we're not going to be that perfect being, right? But every day can be better than yesterday. And when we are in a serious, committed relationship, when we want to make it permanent, whether you do it through a wedding or whether it's at the courthouse or just by word of mouth, however you want to make that commitment, it's important to have the communication of growing and learning and changing and what would happen if difficult times come up for somebody. So today will be helpful because when I talk about mental illnesses and when I talk about situational mental disruption, that can happen anytime in our lives. So it's good to understand upfront and having communication of different scenarios. Well, if this happened, I will be supportive of you. I will help you. I will support you. I know I can't fix it, but I can be there for you. And there's a book that I wanted to share with you that I found so helpful. I read it back about 22 years ago, maybe a little more, but it's still relevant. It's called Getting the Love You Want, and it's by Harville Hendrix. And he's previously written other books, and I think one that's a companion to it is Keeping the Love That You Have. I think that's the name of it. But Getting the Love You Want, and I'm going to give it in a nutshell, and there's more to it, but here's kind of the recap of it, is really helping one another in a relationship, that knowing we can help guide or we can help be of assistance of our partner getting help that they need should a mental illness erupt, or realizing past trauma has popped up and they want to work on that now in their life. That he talks about how we can be as a partner, or vice versa, they can for us, to be supportive and helpful and be part of the healing and recovery, and not be out, outside of it, or feel like you're distant from it, or that you don't matter. And he guides people through how to do that. And it's a beautiful book. I found it really, really wonderful. It does take both people's participation and understanding. One of us doesn't work. So that I know. So it takes both people to understand and read the book together, and it can only be more uniting and bring more intimacy as well. So I just wanted to share that with you, that resource, because it's really good. Okay, so today we're going to be talking about mental illness, and I'm going to read. So I'm sorry that my glasses will have glare from the ring lights, but I do want to get it right for you. I want us all to understand mental illness and personality disorders. What are they? What makes them different? Well, to start with, there is the term SMI, which is serious mental illness. And that would be under the category of personality disorders and some extreme mental illness disorders. Now, first off, what is the difference between mental illness and a personality disorder? Because personality disorder is a collection of mental illnesses. Well, the difference is mental illness is episodic. It can come and go, and people can be treated well and with therapies and medication and be helped and lead a pretty good life, and they educate themselves on what the problem might be. It could be like anxiety disorder. It could be an avoidant disorder. It could be not borderline, but I'm gonna blank suddenly. Where are my notes? See, it grew wings and flew away, like I always say. It is bipolar disorder. That's what I wanted to say. I almost said borderline. Bipolar disorder. And there are 200 really different mental illnesses that range from just very mild, everyday, you can get through your day, it's not that bad, to very severe. And, some people have very severe mental illnesses. But again, it's episodic. It means it can be helped and they can go on with life. A personality disorder, although a severe mental illness or two clustered together, is pervasive. It's not episodic. It's just there forever. And it's how they react to life and to themselves and to criticisms or anything. It's going to be dramatic, histrionic at times, and quite severe, which you can imagine is very life-altering and interrupting, and causes severe pain in relationships or work situations. So that's someone who has a personality disorder is, I feel for them. Even though they manage to create a lot of pain for other people in life, I have some compassion for them, because that's their life. And although some people can manage to get help and therapy, it's ongoing, perhaps medication helps, but it is ongoing and it is intense and it takes a lot of focus and work. And I admire people who do that, who have these disorders. It's not easy. And many of them might want to give up. Some just want to give up and not want to deal with it and just live the way they live, very dysfunctionally in their emotions. They don't know how to handle their emotions. So in mental illness, not only being episodic, I think I shared on Friday that some of us, all of us, can have moments of mental disruption in our lives. And it could be through depression or it could be anxiety. Now, anxiety is the #1 mental illness in this country. That's no surprise, right? It's no surprise that anxiety is #1. Narcissism is #2, and borderline personality disorder is #3. Anxiety can be managed for most people. They learn techniques and ways to meditate or slow down their breathing, or they can manage throughout the day. So it's not super severe for them. I have anxiety, and mine can be episodic at times where I feel it more. It's like I feel it more in my body and in my thinking. And so I've learned ways to meditate and to slow down my breathing and to disrupt that pattern by getting physical, going for a nice walk, a brisk walk, or if it's raining outside, I can turn on music and just dance around my house. It's changing our physical state, which helps change our mental state of being as well. So those are some easy, more readily helpful tips that you can utilize as well if you're feeling extra anxious or kind of moody or a little depressed. Now, depression can come in different forms of severe mental illness. Some people have severe mental depression, and it's ongoing and constant, and they need therapy. They need some medication to assist them to get to more of a normal balance in life. And that's important. And again, that can be episodic. Sometimes it could be just a short term or it can be very long. Here's the difference between situational, let's use depression, situational depression, which I think almost all of us might succumb to in our life. And that can be caused by a divorce. It could be caused by postpartum. It could be caused by losing a job or something, a sudden loss, something like that, where it's jarring and it just spins us into an uncertainty of what do I do now feeling helpless and hopeless. You know what I'm talking about. It's like situational is, in my day, I've shared like when I was a young mother, when I had 2 children, I have 4, but when the 2 were younger and what I went through. And then I had another episode, situational, a little later in life. And then I had, going through my divorce was really difficult. That was a situational depression. And situational meaning it's not episodic. It's not something that's going to come and go and back and forth. And it's because of that time frame in my life. It's because of certain situations we go through. It can be situational. And a lot of times people can, even just talking to a good friend or maybe one session with a counselor or therapist can help get you through. You might not even need medication. It's just, that this too will pass. And many people can get through those situational times of depression or anxiety very, very readily because they've learned the tools to do it. Here's the key. If it's prolonged, if it's actually not getting better and you're going through this 2-3 months and it's not getting better, and it's actually disrupting your life pattern and your life routines, then you need help. Then we need to reach out for help, to talk through it, to work through some things, to get a different perspective. Sometimes we just get stuck in our own perspective, and that can cause the lingering of a situational depression, because we don't want to create a long-term feeling of depression or anxiety, or it's no fun to do that. So there is situational and there is episodic, the episodes of the up and down and back and forth where we do need guidance and perhaps a lot of therapy and understanding ourselves really well, knowing when we feel something's coming on. Uh-oh, I better reach out to my counselor about this, or my therapist. I better maybe talk about, would medication help me, or would exercise and much better, more nutritious foods, and get rid of the processed foods and sugar in my diet, because that can really make a big difference for some people. Nutrition isn't like a medicine. Good nutrition is medicine. We already know this. And not to get on a soapbox, but our way of eating is so poor, at least in this country. It's terrible. It's terrible. The aisles in the grocery stores are full of nothing but useless, nutritionless, processed, sugar-loaded or fat and sugar-loaded foods that we think are normal, everyday way to eat. And it's not what our body needs. Our body needs what we were born to have, which is fresh vegetables and fruits and lean, and not just lean meats, not necessarily, because healthy fats are good for our bodies. Avocados are good for our bodies. Coconut oils are good for our bodies. Olive oil is good for us. Butter, which holds a lot of K2, which many people are depleted of in this country. Butter's not bad for you. It's not. Butter your toast. Butter your broccoli. It's good for you as long as it's organic. Other than that, it's not healthy. So, and I don't mean eat loads of it and slather everything with butter, but I mean a little bit here and there is good for us. So anyway, I'll get off that soapbox. That's for another day, another time, and you can look up your own nutritional needs. Gut health is important for brain health because our gut is our second brain, and I think I mentioned that the other day. So there's something to help us out. I know when I'm not eating sugar, and I really stick to really eating well, and I eat organic vegetables and have organically raised beef occasionally, or chicken or eggs, and I feel better. I know I feel better. And I'll get kind of stuck in the pattern of, oh, I need something sweet today, and I know I feel lousy afterwards. So it keeps me balanced with, okay, what makes you feel better, go do it. So I'm no angel, but I know what does make me feel better and even sleep better and give me a mental boost. So I just wanted to talk about that part of it too, because nutrition does play a part. And I just want to reiterate, if ever you have a difficulty, a moment in your life where, even if it's situational depression or anxiety, just reach out to somebody. If you trust a friend, just talk about it a little bit. I know they can't fix it for you, nor should they rescue you, but they can just, sometimes talking about our issues, we can hear ourselves talk about it. And even then, it's such a relief and a release, or write about it too. That's good too. Now, when it comes to the mental illnesses, I'm going to look at my notes here really quick and see. I have the list of, and I'll talk about what does cause these things too. And you'll know I'm going to say it's in childhood, because that's where everything starts, right? Exactly. Maybe I did not have that. Okay. I don't want to, okay. Anyway, I thought I had it here. I was going to give a list of some mental illnesses, but the basic ones I did share with you. And as far as personality disorders, people are like, well, how do they start? What happens? It could be biological, it could be the environment, or it could be trauma. I think the vast majority is all three of that. Trauma definitely in childhood can create a personality disorder or two. But I do feel like the environment and perhaps the biological makeup of that little child, all three of those kind of play a part. Because you can have a family, let's say a family of three children, and they're all undergoing the same kind of trauma that's presented in the household. And only one of them develops a personality disorder. it's because of who they are, how they're wired, how they perceive the world, what their little personalities were like to begin with. Perhaps they inherited more of the biological makings of having a personality disorder. So, and that means it really gets embedded. Remember, we talked about the paradigms and how everything gets embedded in our minds. And these traumas can be embedded so severely, it tweaks the mental faculties of somebody, of a small child. And so it gets embedded in them to react a certain way because they've made up stories a certain way of what life is and who they are and how other people are in their environment, and on and on and on. And histrionics can occur. The drama, people grow up with a lot of drama and a lot of blaming and a lot of things that just, as a mature adult, you're looking at another, what looks like a mature adult, acting like a toddler in a tantrum. And that's where they're stuck, really. It's unfortunate, but emotionally they're stuck there. So their reactions are wildly severe, and they feel it deeply, and they're convinced that the world is against them. There's a lot of paranoia in some of these disorders, a lot of fear of abandonment for people, terrible fear of abandonment. So people who suffer from borderline personality disorder, the baseline is abandonment. So if they get the slightest inkling of somebody in their perception thinking that they're abandoning them, even a friend moving out of town, instead of being happy that this friend got a promotion and they're going to a brand new job and a new home and they're excited for them, they take it so seriously that they're being abandoned, and behaviors will begin to erupt. You'll see it in the way they act toward that person. And it could be passive aggressive, or it could be outright histrionic. How dare they? How can they do something? They should be staying in this town, and we're friends. We need to be together. How can you do this to me? That kind of thing. And it's pretty severe. And people who have borderline personality disorder and narcissistic personality disorder rarely keep friends. They don't really have friends, because at one point or another in their friendship, the unbeknownst one who isn't quite aware of the disorder of their friend, it'll pop up, because somehow, some way, they will say or do something very innocently that the person with the disorder will perceive it as horrible, and then the wrath comes out. And it's like, what just happened? What's going on? It's like, what just happened? And then you're out of their life. So it's quite disturbing. Or with a narcissist, they get so mean and nasty sometimes, depending on their personality, and there are different levels of narcissism. There's the type of narcissism that's always the victim, and they can manipulate people to make them feel so sorry for them, and gather these people into their lives. The very empathetic person who doesn't have a lot of healthy boundaries will be drawn to this type of personality, because they think, oh, I can help them. Oh, that poor person. Oh man, I can't believe that happened to them. And actually what they're saying is so overly exaggerated. And in the narcissistic's mind, they need a supply. It's actual supply of people feeling sorry for them and boosting them up and making them look good. That's one type of narcissist. Another type is just the braggadocious, loudmouth, know-it-all kind that I think many of us have bumped into in our lives. They know everything. They can't let anybody be better than them in a conversation. They dress impeccably. They're very judgmental toward other people. They don't know how to ever compliment someone else on their successes, because that would mean in their minds they were less than. well, I'm not less than them. I know what I can do, what they can do. And they believe this. I mean, this is I'm chuckling, but it's sad, but it's true. And all it is a very severe feeling of insecurity. People with narcissism are just bloated with insecurity. And depending on their personality, they'll make themselves the victim all the time, or they'll puff themselves up so grandiose and they lie about everything and they make up things about their own successes and they know everything, and they're just really difficult people to be around. Narcissism can't really be helped. I think I shared with you about Dr. Ramani on YouTube. If you have any questions or want more understanding about narcissism, she's like the expert of experts. There are a lot of people on YouTube who know a lot too, but I go to her because she is the go-to of the experts. They go to her because she's been studying this for 30 years. This is her main study, is narcissism. And she talked about in her practice, because she usually helps people who are victims of narcissism. And every once in a while, she'll get a narcissist in her practice, maybe court-ordered or whatever. And very few of them will stick around. Very few of them will want to be helped. Very few of them think that they need help. But they go through the process because it's court-ordered, because of something, maybe it was drunk driving or who knows what, some offense that they needed to get counseling for, and they just endure it because they think they're better than that. There are some that actually, she said, a very few percentage, but some do wake up to it and go, oh my gosh, I had no idea. And they don't. They really don't. This is just who they are, right? This is their mindset. And so she'll work with a narcissist for a long time. And she said, this is the truth of it. She goes, so let me explain it this way. Let's say this is normal. This is like a normal relationship between two mature, healthy adults. Okay, it's like this. You have a narcissist who's barely down here, who can barely handle a real a relationship. And she said, I can get them to about here, but it'll never be up here. It'll never be where it should be. But she goes, it's better than nothing. And I help them manage their life, and they know then they're better off for society and they're better off for themselves. And she said, at least that's a really good thing. They're still not great in relationships, but they're better. So when she explained it that way, I thought, wow, that's pretty intense. That's pretty amazing. And there's a gentleman I follow, gosh, what is his name? I just started following him, but I will give you his information because he is a narcissist and he's been in therapy for so far 5 years. And he's so fascinating because he does these little clips and he talks about it, and he'll give you insight into narcissism, and he'll share how he used to be and the awareness he has had about it and why his marriage failed, and he's developed a sense of knowing about empathy, which is really important because narcissists have no empathy. They only have empathy for themselves. They're the, poor me ones. So he's fascinating. I'll think of it. If I can't think of it by the end of this episode, I will come back to you on that, because he's very interesting to look up and follow occasionally, because he has great ideas about it and talks about it being one, which is fascinating from that perspective. It truly is, because it's very, very rare you're going to find a narcissist in therapy who has a lot of awareness about themselves and about situations and relationships. So I thought that was unique. So now I'm going to talk about personality disorders. Personality disorders are a group of mental illnesses, and they involve long-term patterns of thoughts and behaviors that are unhealthy and inflexible. They're not flexible. The behaviors cause serious problems with relationships and work, as you can imagine. And people with personality disorders have trouble dealing with everyday life and stress and situations. Like, remember I talked about kind of the normal that we go through in life. We're just normal every day, nothing big, nothing small. We just go through our day. We handle the simple stresses that come up. We just do it, right? They can't even handle simple stresses. So here are names of some disorders. There's dependent disorder. They can't live without anybody else attached to them. There's paranoid. There's schizoid. There's schizotypical. There's antisocial. There's borderline. There's histrionic, narcissistic, avoidant, obsessive compulsive. Obsessive compulsive, narcissism, and borderline are the top 3 major disorders in our country anyway. Now, people with disorders, like I just said, can be helped if they recognize it and they want help. It takes long term, and it takes therapy, it takes understanding, it takes all that. So kudos to them. And there are people who recognize this about themselves because they've had to bump up against life so hard so many times. They're like, what is wrong? What's going on? And so some people will seek out help. The problem is keeping them in the seats. The problem is keeping them in therapy. Some won't last long. But those who do, kudos and hats off to them, because it's a lot of work. It really is, to manage your feelings that feel like you're going to explode at any minute. It's changing thought patterns and belief systems that are so embedded and deeply ingrained. Again, they're not episodic. They're there. They're there for the long haul. And that's, I have compassion for these people because I wouldn't want to be in their skin. They didn't ask to be this way. And yes, they do wreak havoc on people's lives. Absolutely. I don't believe they mean to necessarily. I believe it's like a child having a screaming fit tantrum. Somebody help me. Somebody fix me. Somebody make this better. That kind of feeling that just doesn't go away. It's not like in moments we don't have those feelings of, oh God, somebody help me, kind of, moments like that, situational. And then we pull ourselves together and we figure things out. But they don't, and they have no capability of doing so without help. And I mean major therapeutic help. So if you think of, narcissism, I told you a little bit about narcissism, and all of us will come across a narcissist in our life, within our families, within friendships, neighborhoods, community, coworkers. We all will. And I know Dr. Ramani talks about how our society today and the social media, 15 years ago, she was studying this and she gave an alarm cry. She says, we are developing a nation of narcissists. And she's very concerned about it. And there's narcissistic characteristics in people. And then there's the disorder of the personality disorder. People can have narcissistic characteristics. Doesn't mean they have the personality disorder. So they can grow up with narcissistic parents or parent and kind of mimic their behavior, thinking that's what you do in life. But it doesn't mean they have the disorder, and they can change readily. They will do much better in therapy because it's not ingrained in them. It's not part of their personality or mental processes. They're able to change. They're able to turn that around, which is wonderful news. I don't know the percentage of how many do that. Maybe more than not. I'm not sure. But when, like I said, we bump up against life pretty hard, it does want us to make changes and get help that we need. So let's see. In the United States, the DSM, which is like the Bible for the psychiatrists and psychologists, disorders are designated into categories and into clusters. And there's cluster A, which has to do with schizoid and schizotypal. And then there's cluster B, and this holds the emotional people, the erratic or overly dramatic personality disorders like borderline personality disorder, narcissistic personality disorder, and histrionic personality disorder. And cluster C holds the more anxious or fearful personality disorders of avoidant and dependent as well. So you might hear somebody online talk about cluster A, cluster B, cluster C. That's what that means. It breaks it down into categories. And usually someone, more than likely, let's say someone who's narcissistic will probably have another disorder alongside that, or borderline personality or histrionic. It's not usually just one, it's usually a few. And also throw in some mental illness as well, like episodic mental illness, not just the pervasive. So it's very, can you imagine to live like that? And listen, if anybody's listening to me who does have any of these episodic disorders or pervasive, my heart goes out to you. And I do hope that you feel like you can get the help you need, that there's nothing less about you, and that you are just as loved. And you may not feel it by some people, but learn to love yourself. And this is learn to love yourself enough to reach out and ask for help. Ask for help if you feel completely out of control and you don't know why, and you don't understand why friends aren't sticking around, or perhaps why relationships never seem to work. Sometimes we have to stop blaming the circumstances or other people and kind of turn inward to go, maybe there's something about me. How can I do better? What am I feeling about all this? And not judge it, but just know that there's help that can be had. And I hope that for you. And I really do. And I want to know there's no judgment here at all. I'm just explaining what is factual and the obvious, that many of us have had relationships with people with mental illness difficulties or personality disorders. And I, for one, have had that in my life and with relatives, so I understand it. It's difficult, but see, there's help for you, and I just want you to know that. I just want you to know that. So, what else do I have here? I don't want to weigh you down with a bunch of stuff, because again, I know there's a lot more information available to you online if you want to go deeper. I'm not a super expert in giving complete definitions. I just know from my own experience, it's just studies I've done, because, having been in school. But I did want to share this with you because we all go through moments of situational upset. We all go through, even bliss is the opposite of depression, if you think about it, and moments of just pure bliss. I wouldn't say it's an illness unless we want to stay there, and people drug themselves out to stay in a bliss. The problem is they need more and more and more of it, so it never really pans out to work out for them that way. But who doesn't like feeling great all the time, right? Well, of course we want that every day, and there are ways in which we have the tools to do that. It doesn't mean it's going to be perfect. We're not going to be absolutely 100% blissful and happy every moment of every day. But all of us can learn how to have the tools to manage stressful moments for ourselves, or within a family, or a work situation. It doesn't mean we don't have our feelings and emotions about it. Definitely we do. But when we can collect ourselves after a few minutes and figure out what is the best course of action at this time, how can I help somebody? If we're in shock and someone needs help, medical help, it's like, okay, I gotta pull myself together. I gotta help this person. There are ways in which we can have the tools to be the best we can be in situations like that. Or if we're in a situation where we are completely devastated and we need someone to come to our help and aid, and hopefully they can do that appropriately for us, right? And I'm sad to see that sometimes that's not so common in our society that much anymore. I love when when you hear about these news reports or people who come to the rescue and their children. I read something recently about a brother. He was like 6 or 7 years old, and he came to the aid of his sister who was being attacked by a dog. And he took the attack. He pushed her out of the way. I'm like, oh my gosh, what an amazing child to have that within him, to do that, to come to the rescue of his little sister. That's amazing. I think we need to be mature about it and as careful as we can. And that doesn't mean that there won't be a moment when we are out of ourselves for a second, being in shock. That's kind of normal. We will at times. It's just how fast can we kind of get back and to regulate ourselves to take care of what needs to be taken care of in that moment of time. And then fall apart later if we have to, right? Go to our rooms and cry or kind of process what just happened, that kind of thing. Like I shared about my niece who came to the aid of a terrible car crash right down the street from her neighborhood, from her home, and had to pull it together. And she and another neighbor were able to save the children in the back seat and call 911 and get help for the driver, which was the grandmother who was stuck in the car. I mean, they had to do all this stuff so quickly and instantaneously and figure out, assess the health and everything. Are there broken bones? Is there a broken neck? Is something happening? How can I help the child? And wait till the EMTs arrive. So, and then she said when she got home, when she was processing it all, she fell apart. We're going to do that. Sometimes we just have to let the process go through us. Sometimes we just need to break down and cry. We have to. It's okay to do that. It doesn't mean we're weak. It means our body went through a shock and we need to just process that and release it. It's not unlike when we eat and we gain the nutrition, the calories and the food that we need. And then that waste has to go somewhere, right? It's got to be relieved. We got to get rid of it. So we get rid of it and move on and throughout our day. The same thing emotionally. We have to process and allow that release of the fear we might have encountered or the whatever it might have been. It's okay. We're emotional human beings. The best thing we can do is understand that, to acknowledge our emotions and our feelings, to process them the best way we can. And sometimes we need help, right? We need help sometimes to process, whether it's a good friend, a counselor, a therapist, a coach, it doesn't matter. Every once in a while, we just need a listening ear to process some things, and that is okay. Once we get it out of our system, we can move on. Depending on how severe what you needed to get through was, might take a little more time. It might take just one step in front of the other every day. That's okay. Moving forward is what's important. So allow yourself that. When we resist, when we ignore, when we pretend those intense thoughts and feelings and emotions aren't there, or we think we can push them away, that's when mental illness, that's when situational can become an illness and be extended and affect our life and affect our routine and affect our work situation or our relationships. So we just need to be aware in these moments for ourselves and our loved ones. If we see them go through something difficult or tragic or traumatic, be supportive of them and keep an eye on them as well. I know we can't make changes, but we can keep an eye on them and see, are they getting better? Do they need a nudge to maybe seek out a little more help? Or is this just, it's only been a couple of weeks. We'll see where this goes and they'll get through this. We'll see, because they're strong. We know that. Anyway, it's just being aware and coming from a place of love and good intention and balance. It's also connecting with our higher self, taking that time daily. If you can do it when you wake up first thing in the morning or later in the day, whatever works for you, 10 minutes, 15 minutes, you can call it meditation. You can call it mindfulness. You can call it sitting in the power. Kind of all three definitions that may create a different outcome, but they're all beneficial for our mental health and our connection with who we know is our higher power. We need that. It's like plugging in. It's like changing our batteries. I like to see it. I like to envision it that way too. And keeping your own beautiful light shining and your power just on full instead of in that red light zone. So just remember to do that. So I'm going to end this here today. If there's more to talk about, maybe I'll bring it up on Friday. But Friday, let me get my list here. If you have something you want to talk about Friday, please let me know. And if you're watching the recording, you can let me know in the notes because I get notified if you post something. But I'm thinking we can talk about values. I think it's important to know about our core values and how it relates to who we are, how it's very important to understand and acknowledge them, to align with somebody that we plan to be in a committed relationship with. Because, you know, what does it mean when they're not aligned? And it's all connected to emotional and social intelligence as well. All that I've been talking about, I hope you see how it's connected. There's a connection to all of it. It's like a big circle. And mental health is connected to emotional health and stability. So it's all connected. And also to our spiritual well-being, if we allow it. So thank you for listening. Thank you for being here. Thank you, Sherry. And see you Friday. Take care and have a great rest of your week. Remember how amazing you are and that you're a miracle on this planet and how much you matter. Bye for now.